There's a lot more to know about fragrance than just the best-selling brands and your favorite notes. The aim of this video is to give you a deeper understanding of how a fragrance is composed. This will help you know exactly what you're buying, why you like some fragrances more than others, and how to have an overall greater appreciation for the world of fragrance. I'm going to explain some of the terminology used in the fragrance industry and give you some real-world examples so you can apply these concepts to those best-selling fragrances. I recently got into wine and I'm educating myself on the different types of grapes, the different notes that you can expect in different bottles, and how the climate, conditions, and processes affect the flavor. Most people can generally say if they like or dislike a wine, but they can't really say why. That's similar to many people's understanding of fragrance. While there's nothing wrong with that, and you should always buy what you like, I think a gentleman endeavors to understand and educate himself on things that he's interested in. And much like the tasting of wine, an appreciation of fragrance comes with knowledge and practice. The first place to start is by understanding the different types of fragrances out there. When talking about fragrance, we generally use the word cologne to describe anything that's for men, or in the UK we use the term aftershave. But there are actually various strengths of fragrances that all have different names. Fragrances are mostly made of alcohol with a concentration of fragrant oil that gives them that wonderful smell. Different types of fragrances will have different amounts of oil, making them either lighter or more intense. The lightest type of fragrance is eau de cologne. Eau de colognes do not last more than a few hours and are better suited to light, summery fragrances like Acqua di Parma Colonia. The next level from eau de cologne is eau de toilette. This is the concentration you will most commonly see at department stores and places like Sephora. Every best-selling mainstream fragrance is sold in eau de toilette form. The eau de toilette is a good balance between longevity and affordability because the more concentrated the fragrance is, the more it goes up in price. Next, you have the eau de parfum. Many fragrance houses will offer both an eau de parfum and eau de toilette version of the same fragrance. While eau de toilette used to be the norm, many more premium and niche fragrance houses now focus more on the eau de parfum because customers like the increased longevity and they can also charge a higher markup. At the top of the concentration scale is what's simply known as parfum. You will also see this marketed as extrait de parfum, as you see with Baccarat Rouge. Manufacturers generally keep their descriptions of eau de cologne, eau de toilette, eau de parfum, and parfum at similar levels of concentration to each other. For example, a Dior eau de parfum will be a similar intensity to a Gucci eau de parfum. But there is no regulation on what must be described as an eau de toilette or parfum, etc., so it's really up to the brand's own discretion and marketing. If you can visit a department store before buying a fragrance, it's worth trying out the different concentrations of the same one, because they will smell slightly different on your skin beyond just being more light or more intense. The notes of a fragrance, in other words the smells, are created in 3 layers. This is normally illustrated with a pyramid diagram, and I'm going to use the example of Dior Sauvage as I talk you through this because it's a fragrance that many of you will be familiar with. So at the top layer, also known as the head layer, that's what you're going to smell as soon as you spray. So with Sauvage, you have mint, bergamot. Quite peppery too. Next we have the middle layer, also known as the heart. These are the notes that are going to remain on your skin for a few hours. So I'll give this a few minutes to settle in and then I'll see what notes we can detect at the middle layer. So with Sauvage, we have lavender, patchouli, also geranium there. Now at the base we have the foundation of the fragrance. These will be some of the most memorable notes of the fragrance that you can still smell on your skin a few hours later. And it's these base notes that make a fragrance like Sauvage so universally appealing. It has a strong base of cedarwood, which pretty much everyone likes to smell on a man. There's also a note called labdanum, which generally smells like leather and musk to people. If you don't detect all of these notes, there's nothing wrong with you or your fragrance. As I said, appreciating fragrance is somewhat like appreciating wine, and it takes time and practice to detect all of these notes. A good way to improve your appreciation or understanding of fragrance is to buy scented candles or oils that just have one note. For example, I kept noticing that certain colognes were very appealing to me, but I couldn't really figure out why. It wasn't until I bought a vetiver scented candle that I realized that was what I was smelling. And then I was able to research all of the colognes that had vetiver and experience them. Now when I smell a new fragrance, if there's a note of vetiver in there, it's very easy for me to detect. Next time you buy a new cologne, go to Fragranatica.com and look up the pyramid of notes. Try and detect the top notes after your first spray, then give it a few minutes and try and smell those mid notes, and after a few hours, see if the base notes seem familiar to you. Most men's fragrances can be placed into one of 4 categories based on their smell. The most common and most masculine of these categories is woody. These are fragrances like Tom Ford's Oud Wood, Creed's Green Irish Tweed, and, as we discussed, Dior Sauvage. Another popular category is fresh fragrances. These are the ones to reach for in the summer. They have those citrusy and sometimes aquatic notes. Nautica Voyage is a classic in this category and also a very affordable option. You could also go for Acqua di Gio by Giorgio Armani or Light Blue by Dolce & Gabbana. Next, things get interesting with floral fragrances. Although this might sound feminine to you, the results are often far from it. Neroli Portofino by Tom Ford is a very popular choice in this category among fragrance fanatics. Another good option is Gentleman by Givenchy, which has a beautiful, sophisticated lavender note. The last category I have to tell you about is one that I'm a big fan of, and that's amber. Amber fragrances are often quite complex with lots of spices and vanilla. To me, they smell very luxurious and gentleman-like. Some classic examples of these include Ombre Nuit by Christian Dior and The One by Dolce & Gabbana. Although these categories, woody, fresh, floral and amber, are well known, perfumers don't necessarily try and make each fragrance fit into one of these categories. Many fragrances cross the boundaries of 2 different families, and some people might identify them as being more, for example, woody or amber, depending on the notes that they detect. Now finally, I want to go over the difference between a pillar and a flanker. A pillar fragrance is a new, original creation, for example, Le Mal by Jean Paul Gaultier. And then the flanker is a spin-off where they will change the fragrance slightly, but still keep many of the recognizable notes. Normally the bottle will also stay looking fairly similar, but they'll just change something about the design, like the color. Flankers form quite a big part of the fragrance industry these days because brands like to capitalize on the success of a winning product. Personally, I don't really care too much for flankers, but perhaps that's sometimes to my own detriment. That's because I like to introduce variety to my collection when I buy a new cologne, rather than buy something that serves a similar purpose to what I already have. However, you might sometimes find that you prefer the flanker to the original. Gentlemen, I want to hear from you in the comments. What's your favorite fragrance that you're currently wearing? What notes do you detect in it, and is it similar to something that you would normally wear? Now, gentlemen, I want to give you a little update on the upcoming Gent Z event. It's free, and I'm asking everyone who would like to attend to RSVP using the link in the description. Then you will receive an invite email with the exact location and what to expect. Thank you for watching this video, gentlemen, and I will see you in the next one.